Our next speaker is Todd Gonser. Todd Gonser is the Colorado-Utah area manager at Cutler Repaving Incorporated, where he has almost 10 years of experience. Todd uses ARRA and PPRA resources to provide information to customers in his region. One of his projects, State Route 196 in Utah, won the 2017 Road and Bridges ARRA Recycling Award for the Hot in Place category.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to give a little bit of brief overview, a little more specific than Steve just talked about for the hot in place side. A glimpse into the course offered by ARRA and their manuals for hot in place recycling. So what we'll talk about here briefly today is the reasons to use hot in place recycling, an overview of the processes, looking for suitable candidates, what it takes to make a successful project, and then the bottom line, everybody's always interested in the cost savings of these treatments. So everybody's seen this graph in one form or another. Steve had a few in his presentation, but all of these treatments are pavement preservation treatments. You don't want your pavement condition, whatever scale you're using, you don't want that to get too far over the edge of the curve, where it's much more expensive to repair and get back into good shape. So the point of all of these is to keep a good road good, keep your existing pavement back in that acceptable range, so you're not spending a lot of money in keeping it in good shape. So I think what we've all come around to learn is the worst first treatment strategy is outdated and inefficient. It doesn't work anymore. This isn't an idea out of left field. It's proven that you can't wait till something's completely broke down and then expect to have enough money to fix that and keep within your entire system budget. Pavement preservation concept is the industry standard now, really. It's no longer a niche idea. It's what everybody is focused on. Even the federal government, if they're going to throw funding towards local agency to use these things, you've got to have a surface treatment plan in place that acknowledges you're using these treatments that are cost effective, environmentally friendly, whatever it is. You've got to have a plan in place, whatever that might be. So when we're getting money from the federal government, whether it's the trust fund, MAP 21, FAST, any of these, they all include specific language for subsidizing pavement preservation treatments. And of course, money will eventually make its way down to state and local agents. It's a big part of everybody's system at this point. So Steve mentioned, I'll just briefly run through these. Hot in place recycling is preservation and corrective maintenance. It can be used just about anywhere, all different functional classes of roadways. It's proven to be economical, environmentally friendly, and you can typically treat up to depths that you normally would using conventional processes. In general, hot in place recycling treatments follow a basic few steps, I guess. All of these are going to heat the existing pavement. You're either going to mill or scarify that existing surface once it's heated and softened. Typically, you're adding a rejuvenating agent. In some cases, you could add new HMA or even new aggregate, even new AC binder. All of these processes are going to mix that material in one fashion or another, and then lay those back down and compact them with conventional equipment. Sometimes I would say in most cases, you're going to need to place a wearing surface on top of the recycled layer, no matter what branch you're going off of here. The equipment, I believe, was spoken about earlier this week in one of the previous sessions, but in general, the hot in place recycling train is going to be composed of a scarification or milling unit, a piece of equipment that mixes all that recycled material together, something that lays it back down, a recycling screed that's going to spread that out over the width of the road, and then your typical paving and compaction equipment at the end. Here are some examples of the preheater units. Their job is to dry, heat, and soften the existing asphalt pavement surface. You can have 1 up to 5 or 6 of these if you need to, in order to drive that heat down into the material that you're going to be recycling. Next come the scarification units. A few examples of those here, but basically once that top surface of asphalt pavement is heated, whether you're milling it, tining it, using scarification teeth, that's what these guys do now is basically comb down or gather up that material that's been heated and softened. Here's some up close looks at those scarification tines, scarification teeth, even small mill heads can accomplish gathering that material up. Next comes the liquid addition part of the process. Usually all of these different processes will add rejuvenating agent at some point. In general, it's an emulsion, sometimes just a straight rejuvenating oil, or even a soft binder can be used to be applied to the gathered heated existing material that you're recycling. Nowadays, that addition rate is controlled by a computer, as you see in the picture here, and it's tied to the forward speed of the train, so that you're adding a consistent amount no matter how fast you're paving down the road. So it gets added to the heated, loosened asphalt that's been scarified or milled up. It can be added prior to scarification. After scarification, that material can be picked up and run through a pug mill or some type of mixing drum. All we're trying to do is reactivate that existing binder that's on the asphalt surface that we're recycling, get a good coating. We're just trying to pump some life back into that material. So at the back of the train, after everything is run through the hot in place recycling process, it's very similar to a typical paving project. Single, double drum rollers, rubber tire rollers, it's very much the same. The benefits are that since it's a hot process, you've got a little bit longer rolling time to get that material compacted. And since it's a hot process, again, the material that you're laying down is hot, the base that you're paving on top of is hot, and so it forms a really good thermal bond between the base, the recycled material, and whatever overlay material you might be putting on top. In some of these cases, a tack coat is not required since it's a hot process. It's already hot and sticky. You don't need to add anything else to accomplish that bond. So we'll get into the three basic hot in place processes. Steve covered those briefly, but you got the surface recycling, remixing, and then repaving. All of these can use either a single or multi-stage heater, one form or another of scarification milling. Single stage processes, you are treating the entire treatment depth in one pass. Multi-stage, the longer trains, you kind of do that in a sequence so that you're not scorching that asphalt that you're trying to save, and you remove just a little bit at a time and treat that until you finally get down to the thickness you want to go. So the first one, and Steve mentioned it's the oldest, surface recycling. All we're doing is heating that existing asphalt pavement. You could scarify from a ½ inch down to 2 inches of existing depth. You're spraying a rejuvenating agent on top of that, and then placing and compacting that recycled mixture. In general, you're going to want to put something on top of that when you're all finished, whether it's another layer of virgin HMA or even a chip seal on top of that. But you're not really moving that material around. You're just recycling the surface, reactivating that binder, and then putting something on top of it. Heater remixing is a little more on the heavy duty side of the hot in place spectrum. Again, you're treating the top surface down to 2 inches, sometimes 3 or 4 inches deep if you've got a multi-stage train. Again, you're adding a rejuvenating agent of some type. And the key with remixing processes, you can add new material, whether it's new aggregate, new binder, or even just virgin HMA right out of the hot plant. You can add that to the material that you're recycling to improve its engineered properties, and that's all done on the fly. So whether it's getting picked up in a pug mill or a mixing drum, you can tweak the material you're trying to remix by adding new components. And then of course it's laid down. Most cases you're going to put another surface course on top of that. But in the warmer, drier climates, this can sometimes be used as the wearing course. And then the one that's right in the middle of surface recycling and the heater remixing is heater repaving. Same basic concept. You're heating the existing pavement. You can go down to about 2 inches of thickness. You're adding a rejuvenating agent, gathering that material, mixing it together, and then you're placing that just like the other processes, but the The key thing with repaving is you're adding an integral asphalt overlay on top of the recycled overlay. So this machine way at the back has got two screeds. The recycled screed is laying down the recycled material, and new material from the hot plant is coming from the front of the train all the way to the back, and it gets placed right down on top of the recycled layer. So similar to remixing, except you're keeping the two layers separate, and the new material you're pumping into the process is your actual overlay wearing surface. The whole point of pavement preservation, right? We've all seen this a bunch: the right treatment, right road at the right time. And Steve directed us to that road resource website. That's a fantastic place where you can get a lot of this information. You can play around with all of the variables, the condition of your roadway, the treatment you want to try to use. There's a lot of cost data in there, and I highly recommend this website to go and play around. You don't need to wait for somebody to come talk to you. You can jump right in and play around and see what might be available for you to use on your particular stretch of road. So again, this is a mid-level treatment. You're not doing something that is treating problems that are down below the top surface of your asphalt pavement. If there's subgrade issues or drainage issues, stuff like that, those are more of a reconstruct type of situation. Hot in place treatments is the upper 1 to 2 inches of the pavement, and as you see here on the screen, these are some of the things that it is intended to address: raveling, bleeding, minor rutting, shoving, and then moderate cracking, reflective stuff. As long as it's not too terribly bad, you can handle longitudinal cracks. And then poor ride quality. If you've got some minor bumps and dips, these treatments are intended to improve those things as well. Same old deterioration curve. It doesn't really matter what your index is, but you want to try to catch the condition of your road and improve it before it gets too far away from you and it becomes a real expensive problem. So this is just showing that hot in place, you get in the 60 to 70% condition index, maybe 8, 9, 10, 11 years down the road. That's the time to do these treatments and get your quality of your roadway back up to where it needs to be, and maximizes the lifespan of that road. We talked about all this delamination. You know, if you have a patchwork of utilities on your city streets and you want to make everything consistent and looking good again, as long as you don't have really deep raveled cracks or alligatoring, those are obviously problems underneath, and doing something on the surface isn't really going to do much for you in the long run other than cover up the problem. So we try to stay away from those and just target things that are at the top. Steve showed the project selection chart that's in the BARM. This is just an example of one from a state DOT. Everybody kind of has their targets and what they feel that all three of the HIR processes can accomplish. So same thing in the BARM. Again, it's meant for the surface area. That's where most of the damage on an asphalt pavement occurs. It's from traffic and weather. So when your pavement starts falling apart at the top, just like maintenance of your house, you put a new coat of paint on that, probably get you a few more years of protection and looking good. If you just leave it to go, you start having deeper problems and it costs a lot more to fix. So everything's at the surface, and these are all the things that these hot in place processes are intended to address. It's mid-range treatment. Again, photos aren't necessarily the best way to pick and choose which treatment you want to use, but this one's not bad. You've got some moderate cracking, longitudinal, some thermal transverse cracks. You might have some utility patches. Your curb and gutter might be covered up from years and years of paving. So some of these things where you're just treating the surface and recycling what's there, this looks to be a good candidate. So at the end of the day, the thing you're trying to get out of an HIR process is eliminating those surface irregularities, addressing cracks, restoring that grade line and cross section. Your ride should improve. You can get just as much production out of any of these hot in place processes as you would a conventional mill and overlay process. The real key that is cost effective. The material savings that you'll see out of these, your recycling material that's in place. Agencies have already paid for that once when it was paved originally, so why not continue using that material that's there? So material cost effectiveness is big, and then obviously it's a recycling process. It's proven to be environmentally friendly and sustainable. You're reusing something that's already there. This gets into a little bit of the processes, monitoring the application rate of the rejuvenating oil that you're putting in there. You check temperatures just like you would a normal paving project. What we're trying to accomplish with all of these is recycling the asphalt that's there. You don't want to do something that's so hot that it chars that asphalt. And that's the whole point. We're trying to just reactivate that binder that's in place so that it becomes a good leveling course or a riding course in some cases. So temperature monitoring is key. Then those treatment depths, you've seen the scarification tines, teeth, milling head, keeping a good constant recycling depth goes a long way to an improved product. And weather limitations, similar to regular paving operations. Most places you need to be 45, 50 degrees and rising before it's a good day to pave, and you want it to be dry. Here are some of the things that stand out for inspection and testing of hot in place processes. You're keeping a good account of the rejuvenating agent application rate. Usually it's a typical mix design, just like a virgin HMA overlay would be. Again, temperatures are key, and that recycling depth. And then if the following overlay thickness need to be monitored. You can do yields, lab densities, field densities, and then final smoothness by high-speed profilers are very, very typical on a hot in place project, just as a regular HMA paving project would have. This is a very general relative summary of what these cost. So basically these would be compared against each other. Surface recycling, you might be at $2 per square yard. If you were doing heater remixing, about $4 per square yard, plus the addition of material that you're adding to the process or that you're overlaying with. And then repaving, you can figure relative to the others about $3 per square yard, plus the cost of that material that you're putting in that integral overlay layer. And finally, these are some reasons that we've all seen that agencies use HIR. It's a good mid-level treatment. Most places have roads in their system that are so far gone that they need to wait for some reconstruction. Some places have very good new roads that don't need anything right at the moment. But for the most part, systems have a lot of mid-level condition roads that could use a little love right now before it gets too far down the road. So that's the main reason we see agencies using these. It's environmentally sustainable. You're milling less, trucking less, using less raw materials for your pavement as compared to typical mill and overlays. Most places have acknowledged that it's a similar lifespan to a 2-inch mill and overlay. In other words, if you're recycling in an inch and put a new inch on top or within the system, you'll get a similar performance as a mill and overlay. You can use all of these with specialized mixes, your SMAs, warm mixes. You can use that in conjunction with these hot in place processes. And a savings of, this slide shows 6 to 10% over a 2-inch mill and overlay, but as I mentioned earlier, the material savings alone should be much higher than this. If you figure you're recycling the road that's there and you only need half as much new material coming out to the project, that number is guaranteed to be much higher than the 6 to 10%. And as we talked about at the very beginning of the presentation, there's federal money available. All of these funding mechanisms specifically call out pavement preservation treatments as being eligible for federal monies. If a local agency is directed to have some sort of plan in place and they can pick and choose whatever pavement preservation treatment they like, they are eligible for federal money that they might not otherwise get. So I appreciate your time. Here are just some of the contact information for myself. If you got any questions, and then ERA, Asphalt Reclamation and Recycling Association, has a bunch of information on hot in place. And then, as we've discussed, that road resource website is a really neat opportunity to go in there and look around at all these treatments and what they might mean for you. I appreciate your time. I'll pass it off to the next person. Thanks.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.